The current bioethical event on everyone's mind today is the ethical and legal issues with using fetal brain tissue for organoids. An article came out on March 4, 2024 called The Ethical and Legal Challenges of Human Fetal Brain Tissue-Derived Organoids at the Intersection of Science, Ethics, and Regulation from EMBO Reports by Tsomi Swai and Masanori Kataika. In this article, it discusses the ethical and legal implications of using human fetal brain tissue to create organoids. Tell us a little bit more about this topic, researcher Joe.
Thank you, Johanna. Well, organoids are the three-dimensional models that mimic the structure and function of the developing human brain. You can see how having the technology to test fetal brain tissue could further scientific research in many ways, including neurodevelopmental studies, where researchers could investigate how different cell types form, migrate, and organize into distinct brain regions during fetal development and prevent different congenital illnesses. We could understand disease modeling in autism spectrum disorders, schizophrenia, and microcephaly by introducing genetic mutations or environmental factors associated with these disorders. 3, we could help screen potential therapeutic drugs for neurological disorders and their efficacy and safety, especially in developing brains such as children. 4, test neurotoxic effects on environmental toxins, drugs, or chemical compounds during fetal brain development in the womb. 5, we could compare the organoids to organoids of other species to gain insight into the evolutionary aspect of the brain. So there are quite a few, uses for this research. Back to you, Johanna.
So, there seem to be many scientific benefits to testing on fetal brain tissue. However, there also seem to be a lot of ethical and moral issues as well. Central concerns from researchers and the general population alike are that this testing is occurring on human fetuses. For example, Hendricks and his researchers grew the FEBOs, or fetal brain organisms, from human fetal tissues obtained from elective abortions at a Dutch medical center and from an UK-based biobank. The article quotes, "Consequently, research involving FEBOs finds itself at a complex ethical crossroads, intertwining the moral quandaries associated with both BO research and the use of fetal tissues predominantly sourced through elective abortions from anonymous donors. Other central concerns include ability to consent, the implications of transplanting them into animal models, and that lab-grown human BOs achieve consciousness and mature beyond the stages of the original tissue." There are also legal issues at hand. There is a well-established 14-day rule for research on human embryos that restricts in vitro cultivation after 14 days. However, in the study Swai and Kataika discuss in their article, the researchers Hendricks et al. Study-generated FEBOs from fetal brain tissue at gestational weeks 12 through 15 and underwent further maturation under modified conditions, which meant the tissue was at the equivalence of the 20-week human brain. Unfortunately, there is no international consensus on human fetal tissue research, since each country has very different ethical, religious, and cultural viewpoints on the issues of both abortion and the use of human fetal tissue. In the US, the use of human fetal tissue, particularly from elective abortions, is intricately intertwined with the polarizing debate on abortion, which fluctuates on who is in presidency. The 3 bioethical principles being threatened and challenged are autonomy, beneficence, and non-maleficence. While the patients can consent to their fetus's tissue being used for this purpose, the fetus cannot. For the sake of beneficence, researchers can learn so much from the tissue, which would otherwise not be used to help patients and future generations. However, the issue of non-maleficence exhibits that we should not do harm to living tissue, and we do not know the extent of the damage of this research causes on possibly conscious brain tissue. I am not well versed in legal issues or policies, but I would definitely recommend research be done on when consciousness begins and a law be passed on specifications for how old the tissue can be and for what purposes the tissue can be used for, so there is no confusion. This article is important to the nursing profession because nurses in every field must do their best to advocate for, treat, and protect their patients, and this research has potential to progress research on neurological disorders and medications to such a far extent. But at what cost? 2 questions to discuss and think about are the ethical issues with fetal tissue research and the means of obtaining the tissue through abortion worth the scientific gain? And secondly, how can policies protect against crossing these ethical boundaries? Next time with GNRS at 5:04 News, this is NP student Johanna Bazan signing off.